I never imagined that checking my wife's credit card statement would be the moment that shattered my marriage. For 5 years, I believed we had a solid relationship, one built on trust, shared interests, and a deep understanding of each other. She worked in marketing for a tech firm, while I managed construction projects. Our careers were demanding in different ways, but we always found balance. Last month, she told me about a week-long conference in Chicago. This wasn't unusual. She traveled for work a few times a year. What was unusual was the way she spoke about it. Her excitement was almost infectious. She rattled off details about networking events, career-building workshops, and the opportunities this conference could bring for her upcoming promotion. I was happy for her, proud even. The first 2 nights, we video called as usual. She showed me her hotel room, recounted the day's sessions, and complained about the bland conference food. Everything seemed normal, except for the discrepancies. Her social media posts didn't quite align with what she was telling me. One post, supposedly from a conference dinner, showed her in a high-end restaurant, not a hotel banquet hall. When I asked, she quickly explained it as an exclusive off-site event. The next evening, she posted a stunning view of the Chicago skyline from what appeared to be a rooftop bar. Yet when we spoke later that night, she claimed she had spent the evening in workshops until 9, too exhausted to do anything but order room service. I wanted to believe her. I had never been the jealous or controlling type. But something gnawed at me, a feeling I couldn't shake. The following night, she stopped calling altogether, sending only short texts, exhausted. Long day. Love you. That was when I did something I never thought I would. I checked our shared credit card statement. The transactions sent my stomach into knots. Lavish restaurant bills, bar charges that seemed excessive for a work event, even a purchase from an upscale clothing boutique. My mind raced. I barely slept. Was I just being paranoid? Was there an innocent explanation? By morning, my doubt had turned into a decision. I called in sick to work, packed an overnight bag, and booked the next flight to Chicago. If I was wrong, I'd surprise my wife with a romantic visit. If I was right, I didn't let myself finish that thought. The flight was a blur of anxiety and second-guessing. I kept refreshing her social media, hoping for something, anything, that would prove my fears unfounded. Instead, I saw a new post. Another day of learning and growing. #professional development, #conference. I arrived in Chicago around 3 p.m. and went straight to her hotel. My heart pounded as I approached the front desk, forcing a casual tone as I asked for her room. The receptionist frowned, checking the system. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't have anyone registered under that name." My blood ran cold. "That can't be right," I insisted. "She's been staying here since Monday. She's attending a marketing conference." The receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. "We don't have a marketing conference this week. Just a dental association meeting and a small tech symposium." I barely managed to thank him before stepping away, my mind in a fog. I pulled out my phone and checked the location-sharing app we both used. It still showed her at the hotel. Then it hit me, she must have left her work phone behind, the one with location services enabled. My hands shook as I texted her. "How's the conference going?" Her response was immediate. "So busy. Back-to-back panels until dinner. Miss you." I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. She was lying. Without hesitation. Without even a pause. I needed answers. Desperately. I went to her Instagram and checked the location tags on her recent posts. The rooftop bar photo had been taken at a place called Skyview Lounge, just a mile from the hotel. I didn't have a plan, only a gnawing need to see the truth with my own eyes. I arrived at the lounge just before 5, but it hadn't opened yet. So I waited. I sat at a coffee shop across the street, my pulse hammering in my ears. At 5:30, my patience was rewarded. She appeared. But she wasn't alone. She walked toward the lounge with a man I had never seen before. They moved close together, his hand brushing against hers in a way that made my stomach turn. I had come searching for the truth. And now that I had found it, I wished I never had. The moment I saw his hand resting on the small of her back, I knew. The ease between them, the way they moved together, it wasn't new. It was practiced. Familiar. A wave of nausea rolled over me as I watched them disappear inside the lounge. My feet felt rooted to the pavement. I wanted to storm across the street, to demand answers, to shatter whatever illusion they had built together. But I couldn't move. Not yet. I sat there for an hour, staring at the entrance, my mind a storm of emotions. When I finally pulled myself together, I walked back to her supposed hotel, ordered a drink at the bar, and called my best friend. He listened in silence, then gave me a piece of advice I hadn't considered. Get proof before confronting her. Stay calm. By 8 o'clock, I returned to the Skyview Lounge. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, my pulse hammering in my ears. The place was packed, but I spotted them immediately. They were tucked away in a dimly lit corner, their heads close together, laughter slipping between them like a shared secret. Then he reached out and touched her cheek. Something inside me snapped. I walked straight to their table. My wife saw me first. Her face went pale, her eyes widening in horror. Surprise, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. I thought I'd join you at your conference. The man turned to me, confused. What conference? My wife stammered, grasping for words. I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. I let out a bitter laugh. Really? Because it looks like you're having dinner with another man when you're supposed to be at a conference that doesn't exist. She scrambled to her feet. Please, let's talk. Somewhere private. We stepped out onto the rooftop terrace, the cool Chicago air doing nothing to numb the betrayal burning inside me. She wrung her hands, eyes pleading. I've been seeing him for 2 months, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He's a client. We met on my last trip here. It just happened. I clenched my fists. And the fake conference? Tears streamed down her face. I never meant for it to get this far. I was going to end it after this trip. I just got caught up in the excitement. My life with you, it's so predictable, so routine. That hurt more than the affair itself. So I was boring, I said flatly. No, that's not what I mean. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. You weren't fighting for our marriage when you booked this trip, I said coldly. You weren't fighting for us when you were sneaking around with him. You were fighting for yourself. She sobbed. Please don't do this. I love you. I turned and walked away. She didn't follow. That night, I checked into a different hotel, unable to stomach the thought of flying home just yet. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying our 5 years together, searching for signs I had missed. Had she been unhappy for a long time? Had I been blind? Or had she simply wanted something new, something different, and decided that my trust was a fair price to pay for it? The next morning, she called. Over and over. I finally answered on the 5th attempt. I'm flying home today, I told her. When you get back, I expect you to stay somewhere else. We'll discuss logistics later. Her voice broke. Please, let's talk. I made a terrible mistake, but our marriage is worth fighting for. I exhaled slowly. You weren't fighting for it when it mattered. I hung up. When I got home, I packed a small bag of her essentials and left it with her sister. I changed the locks, not out of spite, but because I needed space. 2 days later, a day earlier than her fabricated conference was supposed to end, she called from outside our house, asking to come in and talk. I told her to meet me at a coffee shop instead. She cried, begged, promised it was over. She swore she'd do anything, quit her job, go to therapy, whatever it took to fix what she had broken. I listened, but I felt nothing. I need time, I told her. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. It's been 2 weeks now. She's staying with her sister while I try to figure out what comes next. Some days, I remember the love we shared, the good years, and I wonder if there's anything left to rebuild. Other days, I think of the way she looked in that bar. Not guilty, but irritated at being caught, and I know that this might already be over. My friends are split. Some say once trust is gone, it's gone forever. Others argue that marriages can survive affairs if both people are willing to put in the work. I don't have my answer yet. But what I do know is this. Flying to Chicago may have been impulsive, but it revealed a truth I needed to see. No matter how painful, no matter how much I wanted to believe otherwise, the story I had told myself about my marriage was just that, a story. The reality was something else entirely. For now, I've decided to go to counseling, both individually and maybe as a couple. Not because I'm convinced we can fix this, but because I need to understand how we got here. Whatever happens next, I'll be okay. Sometimes the most painful revelations are the ones that push us toward the growth we never saw coming.